Today my garden project is mesclun, the planting of baby greens in flats. I'm going to use my greenhouse for this project, despite the fact I do have vegetables out in the garden here in mid-November. Baby greens from seed will grow a lot faster inside my greenhouse. They'll also be less susceptible to damage from the little birds trying to peck all the leaves off and such. So it makes for an easier project. It also makes for easier cutting and harvest and control if we put them in flats and put them on the greenhouse bench rather than growing them right out in the open garden soil. So first thing we need to come up with here is some potting soil. One of the ingredients I like to use is a milled sphagnum peat moss. For those of you who are worried about the environment, the products that come from both Canada and the United States are sustainably harvested. They can cut these bogs about once every 7 years to get peat moss. And so this does come back. It's not a mining operation, it's more of a farming operation. Problem with peat moss is that it tends to get very dry. One of the problems with peat moss is the peat moss, if it gets dried out, it's kind of hard to get the water back into. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wet this down inside the tub, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of loamy here, you know, some massage to try to get the water to work into it just a little bit better. There we go. That's a start. Now my hands are a mess. Next thing I'm going to use is a little bit of perlite. Perlite is that white popcorn looking stuff. It is actually a volcanic rock that's been heated and popped like popcorn. I use 1 scoopful of that stuff here in the mix. It increases aeration and it holds a little bit of moisture too. Okay. Then, next thing I'm going to use here is some vermiculite. Okay. Now, some vermiculite deposits contain asbestos, so make sure when you're buying this that you're buying a horticultural grade from a reputable supplier, and it will be asbestos free. Okay. And so we're going to put equal amounts of peat moss, vermiculite, and perlite. Next thing I'm going to add is a standard organic compost. Okay, and probably, I guess, about maybe twice or 3 times the volume in compost will do. Bear in mind when buying compost that if it says all natural on the bag, and if it has perhaps the OMRI certification, you're getting the good stuff. It probably doesn't have a lot of municipal waste and stuff like that in it. But the words natural and the words organic are backwards in the soil and fertilizer industry to the supermarket. In the supermarket, if it says natural, well, that could be a hot dog, okay? But if it says organic, well, it's going to follow some fairly strict government regulations and be under a bit of scrutiny. Well, in the nursery with soils and fertilizers, the words are backwards, okay? So natural is the word if you're buying compost, not organic. You'll see a lot of really cruddy, massive, major multinational corporation type genetically engineered garbage in sacks that says it's organic. Well, all organic means in the nursery is it used to be alive and now it's dead. That's all that means, okay? So look for the word all natural, or look for an OMRI certification on the bag. That's an Organic Materials Registration Institute, I think is what it stands for. Alright, there we go. Now, we have our soil is all mixed up here, ready to rock and roll. You don't have to go to that much trouble. I didn't happen to have any potting soil out of the bag ready, so I made my own. But if you have some out of the bag quality potting soil you like using, that's going to work just fine for growing baby greens. Now that we have the soil mix completed, I'm going to add some nutrients. So we're going to use a bit of an organic vegetable food here. It's just Doesn't take too much, but I think for the volume I got here, maybe about a cup will take care of things. Okay, there we go. I'm going to tumble that through the soil just a little bit. And now we're ready to fill our flats. There's a lot of possibilities when planting baby greens. I've got a whole mass of different lettuce varieties over here, and they work well. But I think today I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use greens mixes that contain things like arugula and some of the tatsoi and various different types of mustards and such. A little bit spicier tasting stuff. So I've got 3 flats laid out on the potting bench right over here. Each one of them has a little package of seed floating on it. So process is pretty simple. I've smoothed out the soil in the flat. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my seed package and put a little crease right here into the bottom of it. And I'm just going to begin shaking seeds down that crease, distributing them across the top of the flat. There we go, that ought to be enough. Same thing here. And just try to watch the amount of seed that's coming down in the sunlight. I want them fairly close together, the seeds, because this is going to be just a mix of baby leaves, and we're going to cut it with a pair of scissors when we harvest. Go. Last one. Okay, well, that takes care of that. Next, I'm going to take my soil scoop here and I'm going to distribute about 1/4 of an inch of soil across the top of these flats. About like so. Level it out. Make sure that we get all the seeds covered up underneath there. And I got it all level. Then I'm going to press it down well. Okay, now we're off to the greenhouse. Well, so there we have it. Gently watering in the flats is the last step. I've got them laid out here inside my greenhouse. This will keep them safe from birdies. It will keep a few of the snails and slugs off, not all of them, but it'll keep some of the pests off. It'll also warm things up a bit. There's a heater cable on the table. I probably won't use it because it's not that cold out yet. But just closing down the greenhouse so it has minimum ventilation should be enough to warm these vegetables up so they come up. Growing things from seed is really a very, very easy thing. For me, I find that the hardest part of the whole thing is getting around to putting the seeds in the ground. So there it is. Get the soil out there, get the pots out there, and get those seeds started. If you live anywhere out here on the West Coast or in the milder southern areas of the United States, this should be a very simple project for you. The beauty of growing your baby greens in these flats, aside from the protection and the shelter they get in here, is that they will stay cleaner. You're not going to have as much dirt and sand on your vegetables to wash off. It's also so much easier to harvest them like this, because instead of getting down on the hands and knees and cutting them off at ground level, you're able to take the flats, actually sit them down at the dinner table if you want to, take a clip of the greens off the top with a pair of scissors when they're ready, and then put them back in the greenhouse, put a little bit of fish emulsion or favorite fertilizer on them, and push them back out again. Usually I can manage between 3 and 4 clippings off of the same flat, continuing to get salad greens for myself during the winter. We'll revisit this as soon as the seeds come up. We'll come on out and I'll share a salad with you. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.